take you through how to create a contact sheet for your photos in Lightroom. First thing you want to do is make sure you've imported the photos that you'd like to use. So I'm using some of the photos I took for an exposure experiment just to find out what the best exposure was for this particular photo. So make sure you've got those imported and into a collection on the side here. So you can see I've got mine placed into a collection. So we've identified the photos that we'd actually like to use for our contact sheet. The next thing you're going to do is actually at the top here, click on the print tab. Okay, so you should be in library at the moment. We're going to go to print. All right, what you'll see here is it probably just defaults to one of the top templates in the Lightroom templates at the side here. We're actually going to find the one that we'd like to use. All right, but first we are going to select the images that we'd like to use. So I'm just going to click on the first one, hold Shift on my keyboard, and then click the last one, and now I've selected all 7 photos that I'd like to use. If we drop down the menu for Lightroom templates, you'll see there's a few different options. It'll change sort of the images on the screen here, depending on what we'd like to do. We want to scroll down till we get to contact sheet, wherever that's gone. Here we go, contact sheet, sorry, there we go. So there's 2 different options. Now we obviously, this particular one, I've only got 7 photos. You might have a few more, so one of these might work as they are. But either way, we're just going to click on one of those to start with, and we're going to edit the amount of squares that we've got, so the amount of images that we can hold, so it suits the amount that I have better. Over on the side here, it gives you a few different options on how to lay out your contact sheet and how we want it to be ready for saving or for printing. So if we open up layout style, you can see there's a few different options there, but we don't really need them at the moment. Same here, you can zoom to fill the squares, or you can leave it out. I'm going to keep mine out just so I can see the full image, but that might suit what you need to do. A couple of other options there. Layout here, this is what we need to use in terms of changing the amount of rows and columns. So you can see if you move it up or down, it'll change it accordingly. It sort of goes a bit funny sometimes, so you just have a think about what you've got. So I've got 7 photos, so I might do 4 rows of 2. Oh, that's gone really weird now. I'll try to do it like this instead. There we go, 2 rows, 2 columns. Let's see if I can bring that up. There we go, perfect. Cool, so just so they all fit on there. So if you had 8, obviously that would be a perfect amount. I've got 7, so it still works fine for what I need. I'm just going to play around with the cell spacing as well, so we can move these around if we need to have a little bit of space. We can always change the size as well, so that should be fine there. I think I'm happy with that, so I'm going to get rid of layout for now. We can open up guides, nothing there that I want to do. Page, we need to do some stuff in here. Alright, so I'm not going to bother with anything here, but I do want to add some more information down the bottom of my photos. So you can see here it just says image. That's the number or the name of our image. So if you want to find it again after, you can hopefully find it using the image name. But I'm going to click on this photo info here where it says file name, and I'm just going to click edit. And it gives me a heap of different options of what else I can have sort of underneath my photo to help identify the differences in our photos. So I'm happy with the file name to stay there so I can identify that later. You could add a numbering if you wanted to, so I might insert that so we can see what image number that is in the row of images. If the date works for you, if that's something that's important, you could always add that in. It's not for what I'm doing, so I'm going to leave that out. But I do want to get at some of this EXIF data, so I would like to add my exposure, so that's already set there. If it wasn't there for you, you can go into that drop down menu and select it. I'm going to insert that, and I also would like my ISO, so same thing, if you've got something else in that section, just grab ISO and insert that. There are a couple other options if that's something that you'd like, but I'm pretty happy with how that looks, so I'm just going to click done, and you can see underneath each of the zoom in, that's right. Under each of the photos now we've got some information, so you've got the image number there, you've got the image title, sorry. I think the number's just in between. We've got the exposure, or no, that's the shutter speed, and then the f-stop exposure and the ISO. All right, so we can have a look at that and see what's changed as we've gone through. So it looks like we've gone from 5.6 to 9, back down to 6.1, just to see what is happening there to create that different exposure. Last thing is to to get it ready for printing or for saving in my case. So if you drop down the print job menu, it might be printer in this print to. Okay, if you press print, it's going to just send it to the printer like normal, like as if you're printing a Word doc or a Google Docs. But we would like to change it to JPEG because we probably want to use this in our folio. If that's not the case, you can leave it as printer, but instead I'm going to change that to JPEG, and then I'm just going to go print to file. All right, save it as something that's relevant. So maybe for me, it's going to be exposure contact sheet. If you're working on the white balance and the ISO as well, make sure you pop that in nice and clearly that it's the ISO or the exposure or the white balance so that you can see that difference. And make sure you're saving it somewhere that makes sense to you. So I'm just going to put them straight into my desktop for now, and then I'll move them into a folder after. So then I'm just going to click save on that, and that should now be on my desktop ready to use. So make sure you follow this process for each of the contact sheets that you need to make. Have a play with some of the other settings and stuff. You might find something that you like, but really what you'd like is just to be able to see those images relatively clearly and get some of that information on there so that you can sort of reflect on it and see what's changed in each of the images to find out what's working best.